Congress returns from their Memorial Day recess this week. There's plenty of unfinished business. As MS Now reports, Senate Republicans are preparing for a showdown over President Trump's $1.776 billion so-called anti-weaponization fund, which is part of a roughly $70 billion immigration enforcement reconciliation package. Very confusing. It's unclear how GOP leadership plans to navigate the dissent over the fund within their own party, after previous concerns that some Republicans would support Democratic amendments blocking the proposal, effectively gutting the fund. Trump, of course, is likely not happy about all of this, especially since he gave a self-imposed June 1st deadline, that's tomorrow, for the GOP to pass the reconciliation package. House Speaker Mike Johnson probably won't be thrilled either, and he's got his own hands full. The House will revisit a war powers resolution aimed at reining in President Trump's military operations in Iran, which was previously scrapped after GOP leaders concluded they didn't have enough votes to defeat it. It's expected to pass with a handful of Republican defectors, though. Joining us now at the table, Michael Schnell, MS Now congressional reporter, and Scott MacFarlane, chief Washington correspondent at Midas Touch and host of Scott MacFarlane Reports. Thank you both for joining us so much. Your first time, Scott. Thank you for waking up with us.
Nice to be here.
There's so much in what we just said, but at the heart of it, Michael, is that the GOP still doesn't have their act together when it comes to passing bills. You wrote about this week. Senate Republicans seem to think, you say, it's on Trump to find the votes for the fund if he wants the money. They were the ones who created this, a senior Senate GOP aide told MS Now on Wednesday. It is very clearly a problem with our members, and our members believe it is theirs to fix. That feels like as accurate as it can get. Donald Trump is the one that created it, and he creates a lot of problems for them. So, sir, you go find the votes.
Remember, this was supposed to be the easy immigration and border patrol package, right? They took it out of government funding. They said we're going to pass this $72 billion through reconciliation, call it a day, and move on. And then just a few days before they were supposed to finish this up and send it to President Trump's desk, that's when the president came out with this anti-weaponization fund, completely throwing a wrench into this entire process, upsetting a lot of Senate Republicans and making them feel like they couldn't move forward without doing something about this. Because remember, we're going to go into what's called a vote-a-rama, which is this unlimited amount of time for debate when Democrats can bring up as many amendments as they want. Chuck Schumer said the very first amendment he'd bring up, again, for the immigration package, would be blocking this fund. And then you have vulnerable Republicans, some of those YOLO caucus Republicans that we now see untethered, that they may feel like they need to support something. It could hamstring the entire package. So because of that, Senate Republican leadership said, OK, we're going to cut this short, go to recess early, but they still haven't figured out a way out of the box.
So the issue of germaneness matters here, too, right? Because it sounds like this anti-weaponization fund is relevant to the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I'm curious, based on your reporting, that only requires like 50 votes. I think it's 50 votes,
talk
right?
Procedure.
It's a little early. It's 7:04 now.
Because this anonymous quote that this anonymous quote that Eugene just referenced, right? It ended with, and I quote here, that our members still believe it is theirs, the White House is to fix. Personally, I don't think this one is fixable. I'm curious to see what you have to say. I think of this as the red line that Senate Republicans are just not going to cross. And listen, more often than not, they bend, right? But if you think back to the first part of this administration, even before he was sworn in, he really wanted Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. And they drew a red line. They said, hell no. And I think this is one of those hell no moments.
That was their last red line, wasn't it?
Well, no,
I mean, sir, look, it's not your usual suspects who are just upset about this, right? It's a lot. Take it from Ted Cruz himself. He was on his podcast last week. He said Todd Blanche was at a meeting with Senate Republicans. Of about the 45 who were in there, at least 20 were pissed. He said it was one of the most fiery meetings that he's seen.
Right.
You bring up the good point about germaneness, and I spoke to another Senate GOP aide who said that because a Judiciary Committee is involved in this, anything related to the weaponization fund would likely be germane, meaning you would only need 50 votes to get over the finish line, meaning that if you have a couple Republican defectors joining all 47 Democrats, you can actually block this thing. And that is the crux crux of the problem here because, again, I was talking to one of these aides and they said we can come up with some sort of amendment that's a compromise amendment among Republicans. Maybe it doesn't block the fund altogether, but it says January 6 rioters can't get money from it. It says Congress will have a little bit more say in who's on the commission overseeing this fund. That's all fine and dandy, but then what is going to stop some of these YOLO Republicans, some of these more moderate Republicans from going and supporting a stronger Democratic amendment that says you need to block this thing? If enough of them do it, that could be the entire ballgame. That is this sort of balancing act right now the Republicans are dealing with, that they can do something that their conference agrees with, but what's stopping those few Republicans from supporting a Democratic amendment as well?
Right. I'm here for the YOLOs. Speaking of the crux of the problem, Scott, I mean, we wouldn't be talking about any of this were it not for the president suing the IRS for $10 billion over the IRS audit. The New York Times has reporting that came out yesterday, an inside look into how we got here. And they report behind the scenes, the job of addressing the vexing problem of how to settle the suit fell to a tight-knit group of lawyers, all of whom had allegiance to Mr. Trump. The discussions were so closely held that some senior White House officials told others that they were blindsided, learning of them only once the agreement was nearly complete. And we should also note that among the lawyers in the tight-knit group, Boris Epshteyn was one of them, officials in the department run by Todd Blanche. And remember, Boris Epshteyn was a client of Todd Blanche's when he was in the private sector, and Todd Blanche was also the private attorney of Donald Trump when he was in the private sector briefly. So, Scott, you covered DOJ for a long time. Please explain to the viewers just how unusual it is to have the President of the United States sue an agency that technically he controls.
Not only is it unusual, it's unprecedented. And this is a big problem for the administration. This slush fund's about to collapse. I'll tell you right now, it's got political problems, which Michael masterfully described. It has legal problems, too. There's a judge in Florida who has questions about what you just described and the other components of this slush fund. And she has ordered the case reopened, and she wants to hear what went on here. She wants to hear what's behind this case. Why was there a suit with no adversarial party? Why was somebody suing himself? And what became of this fund? How did this fund grow out of the lawsuit? She has questions. She will demand answers. The Department of Justice or the Trump administration will have to answer questions. I see all kinds of pitfalls legally.
Wait, Scott, one more thing on this. The other part of this deal, it's not that's outrageous, not just the slush fund, but the Trump, his businesses, his family have been, what's the word I'm looking for? No longer under investigation by the IRS.
Oh, yeah. You can never do it again is part of this settlement.
Never. I mean, can I get that deal?
But let's put aside the fact.
If I were ever to, just.
I want that deal too. Let's put aside the fact that we're in the middle of a cost crisis and taxpayers see themselves on the hook to pay out people they don't even know, people who may have beaten cops. There's also the issue.
Not may have beaten cops. They beat cops. We all saw it.
They may qualify. The money being sent to people who are convicted crooks doesn't land right with taxpayers. What's more, people getting special perks from the IRS or absolved of future IRS audits.
That's the word I was looking for.
That doesn't land well with taxpayers right now. It's a terrible time. The optics are awful. That's why this thing is as unpopular as, like, chicken pox.
Yeah.
Nobody likes this. It's not just the YOLO caucus. You can't find a senator who likes this thing.
So, Michael,
that's a problem.
Is this the moment, then, where Republicans are finally going to find a still spy? And we could talk about this YOLO caucus as people like you have Cassidy. When you look Cassidy, thank you very much. You have Cornyn also, and then there was already Mr. Tom Tillis, who was already a part of that. So that's three. You can add in probably Lisa Murkowski in that, maybe Susan Collins, depending on what it is. Rand Paul, who has never really been a big fan of Donald Trump.
What about Joni Ernst?
Yeah. No, she's very
retiring.
Trumpy. Very Trumpy.
Okay.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it. But so that's more than enough to stop most things. Do you see them actually doing it? Because the benefits may outweigh may not outweigh the problems for them that end up coming from Donald Trump.
I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't at this point. Look at someone like Tillis, Cornyn, and Cassidy. I mean, they literally have nothing to worry about. They are completely untethered from Trump, not to mention they've been burned by Trump. I mean, John Cornyn tried for months to get that endorsement. He thought he may have gotten it, and he didn't. So they're untethered from the situation. The only thing I will say is that by Senate Republicans saying the ball is in the White House's court, they are waiting essentially for the White House to say we're not going forward with this. Or
what does it say that they're not? What does it say that the White House legislative office is not trying to lead on this when they know this is what Donald Trump
they're
wants?
making a really big issue for their members. I was talking to a member of the House last week, a vulnerable member who called me up and said, we're really nervous about this. Like, what is going to happen with this fund? We can't support this. This is not going to play well in our districts, not to mention the fact that we're, almost 5 months away from the midterms?
Michael and Scott, hold on. We're going to keep this conversation going about the YOLOs and whether they'll find their spine.